In this video, I want to go ahead and put together the actual stub for our in-memory service. So the idea is I want to write some code that will respond to these requests. So for example, I want to write code that'll respond to this change password request event with a change password response, so that the user interface, I can simulate what'll happen when the user clicks that button. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to introduce flavors. And we talked about flavors before in an earlier video. So if you want to learn more about them and you haven't watched the earlier videos, check out the videos on the Android build pipeline. So I'm going to jump into the build.gradle, the module app build.gradle, not the project one, the app one. And I'm going to come here into my Android grouping, my Android properties. I'll go ahead and add a blank new line there so it'll look a little nicer. And then I'm going to introduce a new element called product flavors. Now, in product flavors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a in-memory, which will have an application ID. And in this case, it'll be, so our current application ID is com.buzz.yora. This one's going to be com.buzz.yora.inMemory. And then I'm going to have a live one and with an application ID of com.buzz.yora. So the live application will be just the normal application ID. The in-memory one will have a different application ID. This is important so we can have the live application and the in-memory application installed in the same device side by side, so they have different application IDs. Now let's go ahead and hit sync now, so that IntelliJ gets aware of our new flavors. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up my build variants. Go away. So I'm clicking on my build variants tab on the left. If you don't have a build variants tab right there, I believe you get to it by going to your view tool windows and selecting build variants, which is right there. And I'm going to make sure that my build variant right now is in-memory debug. Notice how I have 4 options: in-memory debug, in-memory release, live debug, and live release. So in this case, I want in-memory debug. And so the idea is now I'm going to write code that only exists inside of our in-memory builds. So it only exists when we don't want to hit a live web server. And I want to write that code so that it will handle our events in a testing sort of way. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to introduce a new package. Now, this is where things get a little tricky. I've done this a handful of times, and it gets a little wonky to get the folder to appear. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, right over here on the left-hand side, there needs to be a new package, and that package needs to be scoped to in-memory, so that I can write code that will only be compiled when I have the in-memory debug or in-memory release selected, but won't be compiled when I have live debug or live release. So I need a new place to put my code, at least a new place to put all my in-memory code. And so far, the easiest way that I've found to do this, to get IntelliJ to add that folder in, is to just right-click Java and select Show in Explorer. Then, once I'm in Explorer, back up to the source folder. So the source folder is underneath the app folder. So inside the source folder, and then I'm going to create a new folder in here, and I'm going to call it in-memory. Then, inside of in-memory, just like what we have in our main folder, I'm going to create a Java folder. Inside of Java, I'm going to create a reverse domain name package name structure, which will be com, new folder, buzz, new folder, Yora. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder inside of here called services. And then inside of services, I'm going to right-click, select new text document, and I'm going to create a new Java file called module.java. And I'm going to hit yes to rename and change that extension. So look at this folder structure I just created. You can see it right here on the left-hand side. If you want to pause the video and replicate that, go ahead. Anyway, and I have my empty module Java. Now when I come back into IntelliJ, notice how IntelliJ has picked up on the new existence of that folder. I do honestly believe there's a way to do this within the editor. However, it's not intuitive. I haven't looked at the bothered to look at the documentation because for me it's just faster to go ahead and create the folders on my hard drive manually. And of course, I need some Java file, whether it's blank or not is irrelevant, to kind of anchor in that directory so that it appears in our project window. We'll also want to right-click module, select Git, and select Add to make sure it has been added to our project. So now we have our module.java. What is the module.java? Well, basically, what I'm going to have happen here is I'm going to create a module class for our in-memory and for our live. So the module class will be in existence for both product flavors, and it'll then be used by our application class to register all of the event handlers. So let me show you guys what I mean. I'm going to do package com buzz yura.services, and then I'm going to say public class module. And module will have a public static void register method that takes in a Yura application. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say log.e module in-memory register method called. So all I'm doing is echoing out a log message. You guys don't have to follow along with this. This is just an example. So you guys don't have to type this in. But I do encourage you guys to go ahead and do what I'm about to do as well, which is, now that I've created our in-memory module.java, I'm going to create my live module.java. So to do that, I'm going to back all the way back out into my in-memory folder. I'm going to take this Java folder, I'm going to right-click, select copy. I'm going to jump all the way back into the source folder that contains our in-memory and main folders, and I'm going to create a live folder. Then I'm going to come in here and say paste. So what did I just do? Well, basically, I just replicated our module class with its folder hierarchy, its correct Java-E folder hierarchy, into a folder called live. Now, what did that afford us? Well, if I go ahead and move this off to the side and open this back up again, you'll notice nothing changed. But if I come down here to my build variants and switch over to live debug, look what happened. Our live files are now being included, and our in-memory files are now no longer being included. So let's open up our live module.java, and now I'm going to say live register method called. So notice how we have module.java and module.java. They're two files. They're both identical, but notice the difference in folders. This module.java exists inside of in-memory Java com buzz yura, whereas this module.java exists in live Java com blah blah blah. So how are we going to use these? What I'm going to do is inside of my infrastructure Yura application class, on the onCreate method, after we instantiate our auth object, I'm going to say module.register, passing in this as the argument. So notice how this is a really cool technique here. I'm using this module class as sort of, you can think of it as an entry point into the two different flavors of our application, our in-memory flavor and our live flavor. And so when I do module.register this, it's going to invoke the module class that was compiled with the build. Now, what determines which of the module classes get compiled with the build? Well, down here are build variants, choosing between live debug and live in-memory debug. So let's go ahead and show you guys. I'm going to do in-memory debug, and I'm going to hit run. Oh, I said run this time instead of play. And I'm going to get an error. What do you... Let's go ahead and say sync project with Gradle files. Looks like some intermediate output folders weren't created. So let's hope that sync project with blah 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 things, stuff and things and blah blah blah, and it worked. Okay, the IDE magically fixed it for us. Most likely the problem again had to do with the some intermediate folders not being created. Okay, so now let's scroll all the way up past all of that awful stuff, and now we see in-memory register method called. Notice how on our build variant tab we have in-memory debug. So this is the log that got invoked. Our in-memory register method called down here. You guys can't see this, but the application is running inside my virtual machine. Now let's switch over to live debug and hit play. Oh, I said play that time. And let's say sync project with Gradle. I'll just give it a second. Gradle is currently gradled. Okay, now let's hit play. And the application is running, and if I scroll up on the log, so the application is running on my other monitor, but if I scroll up in the log, notice how... Where are you? Let's try this again. I'm going to hit run. Let's clear the log out. Live register method called. So now you see that is the module that's being included. So yeah, that is our entry point into our different flavors. Basically, our module. So now what we can do is we can register two separate sets of classes with this module class, with this register method, depending on if we want an in-memory build or a live build. So let's start working with our in-memory build, because our live build we're not going to be concerned about until we actually get to performing web requests. So let's come in here, and let's select in-memory debug. And I'm going to close that module file, and then I'm going to reopen this module file. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit run, and I want to show you guys the behavior of the application as it stands right now. Let's log in, and let's jump over into our profile. And let's try to change our profile. So I'm going to hit edit, type some stuff in, and hit done. Notice how it now says updating profile, and nothing is happening. That's because we don't have any services that handle that event. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and write a service that handles that event for us. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and create a new class, and it's going to handle all the account-related service calls. So I'm going to right-click. Now I'm doing this inside of COM/BUZZ Jura Services, the in-memory path. I'm going to right-click, select new, and I'm going to create an in-memory account service. So for the in-memory account service, I'm going to go ahead and give it a public constructor, and the constructor is going to take in your application. And of course, we're going to have a private your application down there at the bottom. Then I'm going to say application.getBus.register this. So now I can handle all of the events that I want to within the account service. So I can say subscribe public void, and let's do update profile first. So I'm going to say update profile account dot update profile request. Then here all I'm going to do is I'm going to say account.update profile response equals new account.update profile response, and then I'm going to say response dot, and in this case there's nothing I want to do here. I don't want to simulate an error or anything, so I'm simply going to say application.getBus.post new account update profile response, or sorry, not instantiating. You can use with the response class. I'm stupid. All right, now let's hit play. So all we're doing is we're passing in the response. So we're simulating a call. So I'm going to say log in, go to application, go ahead and change some stuff, hit done, and updating profile appears and doesn't go away, unfortunately. So let's go ahead and figure out what's wrong with that. I'm going to open up activities. I'm going to open up my profile activity. I'm going to come down here to our contextual action bar. And I'm going to see we do profile request. And then we have a subscribe on profile updated, which sets progress bar visible to false, and which dismisses the dialog. All right, let me hit play again. I think I messed something up here. Well, obviously I messed something up here. Otherwise, it would be working, and I wouldn't be up here on video being awful at programming. So, updating profile never goes away. So, it looks like we could have some sort of race condition here. An easy way to An easy way to debug this would be to say log.e, tag is in memory account service got request, and then on my profile activity I'm going to add a log for on profile updated, and I'm going to say got response and hit play. And now I'm going to watch the log. Notice how I used log.e for most of my temporary log messages. I do that because the Android log viewer will highlight error messages in red. So it makes it easier to find them. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and edit the pass, or edit my profile, hit OK. And then I'm going to come down here and see what's going on here. And as you notice, oh, wow. Props to anybody who figured out what was wrong with this before I did, because apparently I can't code today. So, actually I'm going to leave this in the video, and the reason is there's an important lesson here, as there usually is when I completely fail miserably, and that is we need to actually instantiate the service class. Just writing a class that has the subscribe annotation on a method doesn't do anything. It needs to be registered with the bus. How does it get registered with the bus? It needs to be instantiated. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, the module class is the entry point to our service. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say new in-memory account service, and I'm going to pass an application as a parameter, or as an argument rather. Now let's hit play. Come back here. Let's hit your login, profile, account, okay. And we get an exception. So let's figure out what was wrong with that. Attempting to invoke virtual method on a null object. Well, that's not fun. Could not dispatch event. Update profile request. And yet another thing that I forgot. Let's come back into our in-memory service, and of course, for our application, I must go ahead and say this.application equals application. We will actually make this code a lot cleaner in the next video. So let's just leave that at that. Of course, in our in-memory service, I have to alias out the application with the local field in order to be able to access it in the update profile method. So now let's hit run. Hit login. Ignore that error. That's just repeating the error that happened in the last thing. Logcat does that occasionally. It's kind of annoying. Let's fill that stuff in and check that out. Now, we don't even see the progress bar. The progress bar never appears. We now are able to respond to our events. But you'll notice the progress bar, it doesn't appear at all. And the reason it doesn't appear is because when we do this publishing of the request, the response is immediately published back. It's not, there's no wait here. There's no additional thread, no waiting or anything like that. So in the next video, what I want to do is introduce the ability for our account service, our in-memory service, to add in some lag to simulate a network response. So again, we'll be able to write all of this code on our entire service layer without having an internet connection, which I personally think is super awesome, and hope you guys think is super awesome too. So I guess we'll see you guys in the next video.